Hello, everybody. Welcome back to Level 1 News. Today is June 21st, and we're doing government and security. Or was it social? Social. Started with an S.
You just saw Elon Musk's name.
I did just see it, but I mean, to be fair, that could just be business, right? And not social media, though he does seem to ship.
He's a wild card. He could be in government, business, or social.
Yeah.
But the big story now
or nonsense.
is Twitter. However, that is not the, often I wonder, like, what story should we open up with? Should we make it, like, lighthearted, or should we go with the hard-hitting stuff? I think this one's very important.
Yeah.
Because as much as we have maligned this tool when it was used against us and sanctioned it, didn't we sanction this whole thing?
That sounds right.
Yeah.
Now it seems to be that as long as we can control it, we would love to have it.
U.S. defense contractor in talks to take over the NSO Group's hacking technology. That's about all we've been talking about the last several weeks, and it's been in the news here for years. But here's the thing. This is software. So when we have a headline that says, take over, what they actually mean is NSO Group is just going to give them the source code and say, hey, if you want to run your own that you manage inside the United States, that's fine.
Well, I think they take control of giving it out too, right? They decide who gets it.
Probably.
I think it's a bit of a hot potato.
Yeah.
And you have to be at the top of the corruption ladder to hold that potato for any amount of time. So Israel's like, yeah, we're up there, but we're not number one.
It's a great way to continue to develop and work on the tool without actually giving it up. It's like if you're interpreting this as some kind of, anti-nuclear proliferation thing, it's not that.
Now, this is a third party again, but I mean, we've seen how the U.S. government deals with third parties and how it uses them. This is by proxy.
Yeah.
It belongs to the DOD after this.
And surely these tools would never be used to frame or malign innocent people for things.
That's never happened before.
That doesn't sound like us.
And it certainly wouldn't be used punitively to take a strike back at someone who embarrassed the powers that be, who's way better at them at this kind of thing, most likely.
The UK has approved WikiLeaks founder Julian Assange's extradition to the US. This is very sad.
Press F.
They also snuck this in at 4:59 p.m. on a Friday.
So, yeah, it's bad news for him, obviously. They've been sort of, wish-washy about this, but now there is an appeals process, but
He already went through one.
It's a 28-day window, I think, that he has. So at the end of those 28 days, if he is not successfully appealed, well, what are the chances of that?
Basically zero.
He's coming over here.
He's never been, or he was not on American soil when he's accused of violating the thing. He's just...
and also the witness has recanted.
Yeah.
You think they'll put him in Epstein's cell?
Yes. Ultimately, he will be in a cell very much like Epstein's, where the cameras simultaneously fail in a 5-mile radius.
Strange how that happened.
Yeah.
Well, when if anybody actually wanted to do any investigation into Epstein, they could look at, I don't know, maybe location data from all the law enforcement's phones. Because you can actually do that thing, except they don't want to. And because it's used sort of like against us and not for us, maybe this is a good idea.
Warren proposes sweeping ban on location and health data sales.
It's probably a net positive. I read this story looking for the catch. I was like, what's the problem with this? And there doesn't seem to be one, but...
The problem is the big tech companies lose a bunch of money.
Yeah.
The subheadline also is like, the bill comes as the Supreme Court could overturn Roe versus Wade. It's like, why don't they just go ahead and codify Roe versus Wade in law instead? Maybe that would be better. A better use of time.
Because you're never going to get it through the Senate.
Yeah.
We don't make laws anymore. We make executive actions and, just
We just, ping pong it back and forth for ages.
It's important that when it swings back to the other side for the next president, you can undo it all and fight about it again. And that way, you keep the churn going.
It's a perpetual outrage cycle where nothing important actually gets accomplished.
It's like breaking windows to create jobs. And, of course, we know the big tech companies are getting a lot of flack from the government. And a lot of people kind of frame that as like, well, you're just anti-business. So some other businesses have stepped in and said, what about us?
U.S. bill to rein in big tech backed by dozens of small and big companies. Is this the one where the big tech companies are saying, we don't think this is going to work out the way that you intend to? Meanwhile, everybody else is saying, yeah, this sounds great. We should totally do this.
Yeah.
My favorite list of like all the little companies and groups that were involved, one of them was like the Booksellers of America or something like that. And I was like, they're doing that because they hate Amazon.
All those Bezos people have come home to roost.
Independent Business Alliance, Institute for Local Self-Reliance, Kelku Group. I don't know who they are.
Well,
Chamber of Commerce, like mom and pop type stuff. DuckDuckGo's in there. Spotify.
and Spotify, which
oddly
surprised
enough.
me. Yeah.
They talked about how it would benefit Spotify, even though they're big. And we have some new hacking laws that are meant to support researchers. So if you find, for example, Facebook stealing data, and in order to prove that, you have to get in there in a way that might be illegal, the new laws are supposed to be a little more tolerant of that. But
They're not even laws as much as they are memos.
that's right. It's more of a suggestion. But could that be used for people who are actually hacking? And where's the line? We might get a ruling on that.
Seattle-based Amazon software engineer goes on trial in test anti-hacking law. So the defense contends that this is someone who was a skilled software engineer, but wasn't really sort of read in on how things should be conducted in terms of security investigations, like going in and finding things, as you say, that maybe they shouldn't. And the prosecution argues that this person was breaking into systems, stealing data, and then setting up cryptocurrency mining operations.
I don't know about the crypto, but this person did have a lot of text messages that made it sound a little suspicious, like they weren't doing it in good faith, and major red flag history of mental health issues.
Yeah.
Major.
Yeah, so you wonder if it was a situation where it's like, I've tried to report this to these companies and they won't listen, so I guess I'm just going to use my access to mine cryptocurrency as a way to make money.
Yeah.
Since I can't make anything else. And it's like, well, it doesn't work that way.
But really, like all the letters they sent were in human feces.
Yeah, so I don't know. It's going to be interesting. Now,
I won't answer my letters.
Now, the prosecution makes it sound really bad, but the only thing they're charged under is the Computer Fraud and Abuse Act, which is kind of like a universal umbrella. If you violate the terms of service on the Level 1 website, technically charges could be brought against you under the CFAA. So if they were really setting up cryptocurrency mining and a bunch of other stuff, I'm surprised they haven't been charged with more.
Yeah, I think probably what's going to doom them is those text messages because they showed maliciousness. And if not an attempt, a desire to benefit from it, to make money from it.
Is it, gosh, wouldn't it be funny if, and then it's like, ooh, yeah, you can't do that.
In fact, that wouldn't be funny at all. But you know what is funny? Elon Musk and the plate of crow that he is having to eat because it continues. The blitzkrieg against him continues. They're digging up every possible reason to destroy this man, and they're going back as far as they have to.
Elon Musk sued for $258 billion over alleged Dogecoin pyramid scheme.
That's quite a sum.
Was this recent? No, this is based on tweets from like 5 years ago.
What's the statute of limitations on securities fraud?
Yeah, I mean, it probably was a pyramid scheme, but I mean, it's been like, what, 2018? When was he tweeting about that?
But he didn't. Was he involved in the creation of Dogecoin?
I don't think so.
No,
He just constantly tweeted about it
Yeah.
and then he dumped it.
just hyped it. He has, looking back, I don't think he was committed to crypto the way he claimed he was.
Yes.
Yeah, I think he pumped it up and
But
dumped it.
is that a crime? I guess we'll find out.
Is it securities fraud? Some people would really like for it to be because it makes some other problems go away.
I read this, and yeah, of course, we probably should do this, and I'm sure that the Russian people, in a lot of ways, don't get real information. But then I think about NewsGuard, and I'm like, oh wait, are we really on top of the hill here? Is somebody going to do this for me? I need this.
Exclusive. U.S. targets Russia with tech to evade censorship of Ukraine news. There's only the most tangential mention of Tor, which actually does receive U.S. government funding for exactly this kind of thing. But this article talks about how U.S. companies are maybe going to provide VPN access and a whole bunch of other stuff to circumvent network controls
They
on
got
the internet.
millions of dollars for that. Quite a bit of funding.
Yeah,
You wonder how many of those accounts are going to be fake.
a lot.
How many of those accounts are going to be Russian hackers just abusing some VPN company?
A lot. I'm going to use your VPN access to attack companies in America. And it's just like, this is why we can't have nice things.
Yeah, we were just doing that to be nice and not for any other reason.
Right. Yeah, we don't have any interest in the outcome of that war. And Europe, they did their whole net neutrality thing, and it seemed to be pretty good. But like with most government regulations, you find out after some time that there are massive loopholes, and they're being exploited, and you got to try to clean that up.
Europe cracks down on data cap exemptions in update to net neutrality rules. ISPs can't use 0 rating to exempt apps from data caps, the EU agency says. So some of these were paid and some of these were unpaid. They were just part of a deal. It's like, we're not paying to have our data exempted. We're just participating in a partnership. And one of the things in that partnership is exempting the data from your app and being counted against the customer. It's like all of that is not going to fly, which is good. It's good for the consumer ultimately.
It's so confusing at this point. Like just make it one way or the other.
I'm surprised somebody hasn't tried to argue that the whole market for selling data is some kind of like capitalistic free market where, company A has a deal with provider B and then can sell their data block units on an open market. And then depending on, who's doing what, then you get arbitrage of selling low and, selling high and buying low. And it's just ultimately data packets. It's ultimately all the same ones and zeros.
I think one of the problems that emerged from that is the phone card scams they used to do, like in The Sopranos.
Yeah.
They would bulk buy them, sell them on the street, and then never pay the bill, and they'd all get turned off. So you had all these, just front companies completely robbing people with phone cards. They would do the same with data.
Yeah.
If we made it into a market like that.
I don't think we should. I just think that that's the logical conclusion of playing the data cap game is that ultimately it becomes a market like that.
But I think the reason you don't do that is because, the regulatory capture, right? These guys would never allow it.
Yeah.
That's a cash cow. That's a cash bison.
They want to make that cash for themselves. They don't want it to be a free market, as they claim.
And the EU, of course, their big war on tech is going on, and quite a loss here.
Yeah.
A big $sign loss. Maybe they were too greedy.
Qualcomm wins the fight against the $1 billion EU antitrust fine. Again, Qualcomm, you really got to look at the whole Apple versus Qualcomm case. Qualcomm really wasn't behaving atypically for a company. Meanwhile, I would say that Apple was very egregiously doing anti-competitive things in that suit here in America. There's a lot of parallels, I think, with this case in the EU. And I think a lot of the incumbents really talked up abusive, quote unquote, abusive things Qualcomm was doing, but they weren't really. They were just like, we own this technology. We think it's worth this. Other people are paying this. Pay us.
And they agreed. Don't agree if you don't like it. Now I wonder, this, because of the pace of bureaucracy, this was probably already in the works, right? Don't you think? But if
the timing is suspicious.
Yeah, that's what I'm going to say. Like the never let a crisis go to waste. What sweet timing for this. Because this comes just as crypto provider after crypto provider is like, oh, guys, guess what we don't have anymore? Guess what you're never getting back?
EU aims to clinch deal on landmark crypto law this month. It was waiting in the wings for a couple of years now. And finally, now is the opportune time to get this thing passed.
They're still arguing about whether or not NFTs count as crypto.
That was a late ad.
Because they wrote it last year.
Yeah.
But we will see about that. I think there probably will be a lot. I mean, if they have a public hearing, you're going to have a lot of angry people willing to come and say, yes, this must be regulated. I lost everything.
Yes.
Even though they're just FOMO idiots.
The families, it's like, I'm going to put my entire house on the... No, please no.
And where one big tech wins, Apple has lost, although they've kind of spun it as if this were a compromise. It is not a compromise. Apple hates this.
Apple giving up ground in its App Store fight with Dutch regulators and Tinder. So basically, all those weekly fines that we reported on every week for like a month and then we gave up because it was still happening. Apple has finally conceded they will allow third-party payment processors for these apps. Now, technically, historically, Apple was kind of looking the other way when allowing these payment processors. But as soon as they won their lawsuit against Epic, they said, well, let's clean this up. And then that's when these companies complained, and it's taken this long in order for that to get sort of resolved. And it was resolved not in Apple's favor.
They're also going to cut 3% off of their take as another concession, I guess. I think that's to prove that they're not trying to just keep the money for themselves. Like that gives them a little bit more argument where, no, we're just doing this for security. It's not about the money.
It's kind of about the money,
Yeah,
but it's a little
totally,
bit.
Absolutely about the money.
You don't get to $1 trillion company without making a few enemies.
It's certainly not about the Dutch finding their perfect mate. Apple doesn't care at all about that. Now, if we look at the EU, as they are suddenly standing up and saying, all right, we got to get a handle on this crypto thing. This thing is a mess. Perhaps the UK's timing was bad in the same vein.
We want to make Britain a crypto hub, but with investor protections, says UK's digital minister. It's like,
Yeah, I don't know how many people you're going to find who are ready to jump into that market right now.
Yeah.
I don't, your 401k and your retirement account doesn't really have a lot of protections anymore. Those have been whittled away over the last 20 years or so. Your pension, yeah, well, there's not like.
We're not going to get to retire, are we?
I mean, if the stock market continues to, if they do what they should do and raise the interest rates, it's going to get smashed.
Yeah.
I don't know. They do love that stock market. They might protect it.
As long as they can.
I mean, we have people like Nancy Pelosi making those decisions, right? She lost. Did you see? I can't remember what her total was. She has lost a ton of money.
If she's losing money, what hope do we have?
Exactly. Yeah.
I saw that Warren Buffett gave away like $45 billion. So I guess he's like, you know what? I've had a good run. I'm out. I'm retiring.
Yeah. I mean, well, I think nature's going to take care of that real soon.
Also, do you think he thinks the guillotine's coming and he's like, I need to get some good press? Like,
No, he's 93. He probably just wants to enjoy his Diet Coke and just,
ice cream, eats ice cream for breakfast.
Yeah.
It's probably like a cognitive thing, right? He's probably making some gaffes at the board meetings. And another thing the UK is doing is they're looking specifically at Apple and Google and saying that is a duopoly.
UK regulator plans to launch probe into Google and Apple's mobile duopoly. The CMA is also investigating Google Play Store rule that requires developers to use its payment system. Why not Apple? It's like, well, there's other things happening in with regard to Apple's mobile payment thing, a la the Dutch thing.
But who competed with them, right? I mean, like, does UK have Huawei phones? Not now, right?
Not now.
Do they have ZTE? What other brands do they have?
Well, there's no other app store, really.
yeah. A lot of people use Android or Apple.
Like, you want to sideload an application? And it's like, there's a lot of evidence against Google sort of discouraging the whole sideloading thing.
You mean evidence for?
Evidence. Oh, yeah. Evidence for discouraging against sideloading. Yeah.
Now, here's a story that they did immediately delete. This could have just been someone who was overenthusiastic. It's really hyped about their space exploration
This
jobs.
should be a nonsense. It's a nothing burger.
But they claim that they're seeing the signals.
China detects possible, quote unquote, extraterrestrial civilization, state media reports. And then the report was deleted. There's not a lot of details.
But in the article, they say that it's actually very highly likely just radio interference. It's like,
Yeah. Well, maybe that's KXAN,
Yeah.
just hiding the truth.
Editorializing.
Right.
Or they were accidentally pointed their radio telescope at a region of space that currently contains the Voyager space probe. And it's like, there's something out there. Send it radio back. I was like, that's one of ours.
It's ours.
And well, I've been consuming a lot of China media on YouTube, and this is a big thing over there. These banks are like, first of all, they went, we can't do online or mobile transactions because we have to update the system. That was like 2 months ago, and they still haven't put it back. And then it's in rural places, so you often have to take a long train or bus trip or something. And then when they get there, they just won't talk to them. Like they have videos where the teller just keeps looking away, like they just will not. So then they got into a group and organized. What do you do about that?
China's bank run victims plan to protest. Then their health codes turned red. In order for you to be able to move and navigate through like a train station or mass transit, your QR code on your phone has to scan green, saying that, you haven't come into contact. Well, when these people showed up to protest, as soon as they got near the bank, they turned red mysteriously. And then they were sent to a quarantine hotel, but they didn't really follow the quarantine protocols, which suggests that this app very, very, very sophisticatedly is not for health anymore.
Not only did they not do the quarantine, some of them they put right back on the train. And the rule is if you're red, you get nowhere near a train.
Yeah.
But they were like, they didn't even have to go through the checkpoints. The security just hustled them right onto the train.
They literally were like, go home, peasant.
Yeah.
And some of these people, it's, their life savings. So they're understandably freaking out.
Yeah. It makes me wonder what I should be doing with my life savings here in the US.
Yeah. Well, we have, FDIC. I don't know if they have something like that, but even if they do, I think someone's trying not to let that happen.
Yeah.
Someone's trying not to let that happen at such a high level that the health app is already so corrupted and so compromised that this seemed to have been very easy for the authorities to do, to the extent that as soon as people got far enough away from the bank, their app turned green again.
Also, they're doing, I think it's every 72 hours you have to PCR test, nucleic test, right? And that's how your QR code functions. So they're doing that so often, that's insanely expensive. But the Communist Party is just like, local governments, you deal with that cost. So the local governments have started charging people for the test. So if you drive delivery, which is like a huge job now because Shanghai's locked down, you have to pay the equivalent of 74 cents US every time you get tested, which you have to do every 2 days. Now, that sounds like a small amount of money, but these people who are delivery drivers in China, well, they're making like $1,000 a year.
Yeah.
So not a small cost for them.
Why are people lying flat? Says the party.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And in India, we've seen this kind of thing before from India. They kind of went back to the same playbook.
Police linked to hacking campaign to frame Indian activists. New details connect police in India to plot to plant evidence on victims' computers that led to their arrest. We've had things like that happen here in America, too. Remember the NSO Group story, the very first one?
Here it is.
It's a little more obvious in this case. Now, one of the smoking guns that they found, and the people that found this out were not the Indian authorities. It was third-party guys. So, because one guy got arrested and then got out, and he took his laptop to these people, and they're like, all right, we'll investigate it. There was a Word document describing how he was planning to kill some politicians or something. It was authored by someone's Word account other than his. And then they found that there was someone had changed the recovery information on his account so they could take back over if he figured it out. Guess who it belonged to? A policeman, a police chief. So they're bad at it.
Imagine he's using his .gov address.
They just need some more practice, and they won't be as bad at it, and it won't be as obvious. And that's the real darkness. Everybody watching.
I'm sure they're getting in plenty of reps. I'm sure this was not isolated. And India also is cracking down on online by trying to prevent VPNs so that people can't get away from the spying eye of the government. And VPN firms are looking at the law and saying, oh, you know what? Yeah, this pretty much makes us not able to operate here.
VPN firms are removing servers in India to avoid customer data sharing rule. We reported on this like 3 or 4 weeks ago, and it was basically if you operate a VPN server in India, you're going to have to retain customer details, and you're going to have to be able to respond to complaints from the police. But as we see, that is perhaps not a good idea.
One of the VPN providers said that they had some alternatives they were going to do. They didn't say what, but I'm not sure how you get around that.
You just don't have servers in India, but that you can still connect to over the internet, I guess. But then how do you take money?
Yeah, I don't think they'll allow that. I think they'll shut those down because that's you're purposely bypassing their law at that point, right? And here's a terrifying reality that I think we're probably heading toward.
Yeah.
I think this is probably the vanguard, and people are going to be like, "Oh, that's such a good idea. We should do it everywhere." But of course, this begs the question, who gets to decide what an insult is?
Japan makes online insults punishable by 1 year in prison in wake of reality TV star's death.
They did give some guidelines, although they're very vague. But one of them is it can't be like if there's no truth involved with it. But we're in a place right now where the truth is completely subjective. I mean, it's not, but we have to pretend that it is. We have to just pretend that concrete truths are not real. And if the government decides it's different, then how do you know? How do you know what reality is?
If I call someone a poo-poo head on Twitter, will I be in prison for a year?
Is their head covered in feces at all times? Maybe you get away with it at that point.
Are they coming for the 12-year-olds on Xbox Live?
I don't think that would
First they came for the 12-year-olds on Xbox Live, and I did not speak up.
And we have a new contender that's stepping up against the big tech companies. I don't think they're too worried about this one.
Nigeria's internet regulator releases draft to regulate Google, Facebook, TikTok, and others. There wasn't really a lot of substantial information about what the regulation is going to be.
They have this set of rules. It looks like they kind of copy pasted from the EU.
Yeah.
They was this the one where they were supposed to open up a local office, but they never have?
Yeah,
Yes.
establish a legal entity.
That was the very first one.
Register with the country's corporate affairs commission is the number one bullet.
Well, they had already agreed to do this. Like Twitter and some other companies had already agreed to do this at the beginning of the year, but they didn't.
Yeah. So
I do kind of wonder with a lot of countries making these sort of laws where it's like you have to have a presence here or whatever. Is this just going to make it so like people can't run larger websites unless they have a ton of money?
yeah, well,
Because like no one can afford to have that many
I
offices or whatever.
guess you just need one guy, right? You could do it, but I don't think that's as much about trying to put up a gate as it is for them to be able to pull something down immediately
Right.
or fine you into oblivion because you don't have the infrastructure to do that quickly. And with enough volume, they could saturate whatever you have, right? Like if they come at you with enough requests, like let's think about the DMCA requests, right? Like how many do they plaster thousands, millions of those every day. So if you're the Nigerian local office guy, your life's going to be hell because you got a backlog. And if you don't get to them within 24 hours, now you get fines. So in a way, I guess they are making it impossible.
Yeah.
Now, Nigeria is also doing something sort of revolutionary, but they are purposely leaving out crypto. This is not about crypto.
Nigerian bourse to adopt blockchain for settling trades by 2023. This is their stock market, and this is really just to try to avoid things like the GameStop stock shorting thing that's going on. Maybe was that your read of it?
And to instead of having a clearinghouse and settling all that way, to use the blockchain as the clearinghouse.
Yeah,
And make sure that everything is
as a way to try to prevent fraud.
right. Yeah.
Yeah.
And when they say bourse, I assume this is not just the stock market. This is going to be commodity markets too. It's going to be oil and all the stuff, any kind of all those precious metals that are coming from there.
Water now.
So the blockchain is not for the intrinsic value of the blockchain, but as a security control system.
Right. And a way for you to be able to prove that transactions did or did not happen.
Yeah.
Like an involatile ledger.
This shows those are my stocks that you're trading with, and I didn't give you permission to do that.
And here's one that should not shock anybody, but it is disgusting. And this just goes to show you that. Now, do you think this was purposely malicious, or is this just third-party web developer that's like, oh, we put that on everything?
Yeah, third-party web developer. Yeah.
Well, why would anybody build a website without the metapixel?
Facebook is receiving sensitive medical information from hospital websites. Turns out if you embed the Facebook tracking pixel in websites, it's going to read the forms that are on the website. And guess what? That's going into a database.
Some of the forms had a drop-down where you chose your disease, and it had your name.
Would you like to share your diagnosis on
Right.
Facebook?
So Facebook definitely got, they pointed out one was like colon cancer. So Facebook got their name, address, phone number, and colon cancer with that click.
So that's why I started getting those flyers in the mail.
Well, so you're going to start getting ads on Facebook. It's like, is your liver failing? Hot livers in your area.
One weird trick to stop liver failure. And YouTube Shorts, man, we tried the YouTube Short thing, and people hated it. That might be the vocal minority, but it didn't seem like it moved the needle very much. It wasn't worth the effort.
Yeah.
However, apparently we're in the minority because it's really popular.
YouTube Shorts tops 1.5 billion logged in monthly users, touted as a feeder for long form content.
I don't know. I don't feel like we got a lot of new audience members from ours.
I should do really short form Linux shorts where it's just something that's just completely infuriating. Like
There should be something inflammatory about how one distro is better than another.
that'll probably feed the algorithm. Yes.
Yeah. Maybe that's the kind of content that does well in it. Maybe that's why we never moved the needle as much.
Someone was on my Twitter feed was pointing out the insanity of like the tech TikTok stuff, and it's all just a sea of bad advice and misinformation, and
Or not complete information because the format doesn't let you get into any kind of nuance.
Yeah, and it's like, oh, to speed up your hard drive, fill it up with extra copies of your games, and it's like, what?
I didn't include the story, but I just saw as I was browsing the news before we started, TikTok is now claiming they're not social media. They're an entertainment platform.
X doubt. If they're an entertainment platform, does that mean they need to be paying their creators?
Oh, weren't they going to start doing that, but a very limited way? I think?
Yeah. So
Very,
if you're an entertainment company, I would think you'd have to have contracts, and I don't know.
Well, you ever have? I know you've experienced this. Where everybody experiences this, where there's someone that you thought was dead, and then you see the headline that they're dead, and you're like, "Oh, I already thought they were dead. I can't believe they were even still alive."
Oh.
Huh?
Google Talk is surprisingly still operational, but that ends on Thursday. It's finally over for Google Talk.
To the graveyard, to another Google product.
To the giant pile of successful products acquired by Google, but then eventually shut down after they didn't understand why the product they acquired was successful.
And Elon Musk, the whole Twitter thing is still up in the air now. He's had his fire hose for what, a week, 2 weeks now?
Yeah.
Hasn't said anything about that, but they are letting him talk to the employees because the employees seem to be, rending their garments over all of this. I don't know that he improved the situation.
I
No.
don't think he did.
Here's what Elon Musk just told Twitter employees. Scroll down to his little slideshow. It's hilarious.
So we got, this is like a timeline thing.
One of the headlines was layoffs likely.
Well, that's coming to every company.
Yeah.
Once a billion active users. Talked about aliens for some reason. Doesn't care about being CEO. The free speech thing, they did not like that at all. Layoffs, yeah, layoffs are coming. Oh, he wants them back in the office.
Of course he
We know
does.
that's his thing.
Yeah.
Build trust.
He says all that, and then he's like, I know, I really do care about you.
And he loves Twitter. One of the things that he's talked about with the come back to the office thing was if you can prove that what was the word he used? It was basically, remember the Google AI guy? It was that same argument. Like, oh no, if you're really important to us, you can work from home. And in the internal Slack, somebody leaked the internal Slack message. They were like, we got to figure out how to be that. How do we
be
become
important?
that?
But it's sort of a vague, message to your employees. Like, you can work from home if I decide it. But there's no real.
I take the specifications from the customers and I give them to the engineers. Do you want the engineers talking to the customers?
Turns out that's better.
It's better, but the engineers don't like it.
Yeah, but after you've done it the other way, you'll do it.
Yeah.
To keep from doing it the other way.
Yeah.
And here, I don't know anything about this guy except that he has said some really dumb stuff. But it seems like he's amazingly, at his age, mastered social media where all of his political opponents can't.
Who is Colombia's old man of TikTok that could become the next president? He's 77. He's a civil engineer, and he uses TikTok and social media, and he has used that to build a platform for himself in Colombia, and because of that, he could be president. So for us, imagine, I could probably get behind a President MKBHD, but I'm not sure that I could get behind like President Logan Paul, because that would be just like, ugh.
I don't even know who you're referencing. God.
Marcus.
So this guy, one of the things that they point out is that even though there's a permanent record of all of his social media posts, he has no fear of just changing his opinion 180 degrees and coming out and being real serious about the new direction the next day.
Does he explain that as like someone made a different
No.
argument, or he's just like, no, someone else said this and now I'm going to repeat it?
No. Like there was one point where he was talking about something, and then afterwards, I can't remember what it was, but then afterwards, his next post was like, F that. Oh yeah, tracking. He wanted more tracking. He voted for that, or was going to vote for that, but then he made a TikTok video shouting F tracking. Or fracking, I'm sorry, fracking. Right. He wanted to open up regulations for fracking. They changed his mind. He immediately went anti-fracking.
The other way, huh?
I don't know. I mean, we've learned that celebrity and popularity trumps almost everything else when it comes to an election, right? So
That's sad. It's sad too because that guy again is like a 77-year-old man.
And that's probably making the incumbents super nervous. Probably nervous enough to disappear him.
You think
77 years old.
would that make them shut down TikTok? That would probably be a big backlash, though, right?
Yeah.
People probably love that.
I hope when I am in my late 70s, I'm not like, yeah, I should go into political office and be really stressed out in the last years of my life.
I don't. With the way the demographics are going, it's going to be all old people by the time we're old. There's going to be so many more old people other than us. It's going to be awful. But that's what we need.
We'll be able to talk to our AIs and robots while real people don't really want to deal with us because we're a reminder of what once was.
Our robots will probably just silently kill us.
Maybe that's for the best.
Maybe.
My elder care robot, it's like, I'm not programmed to tell you when your termination date is. It will be a surprise, I promise.
Constantly throwing the robot off.
Robot, I can swear I've already taken my medicine 5 times today. I feel I'm hot and I feel like I got hives all over me.
I feel euphoric.
Yeah, what do we got for tomorrow?
Business and security.
Nice.
We'll see you guys then. Bye! Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the Level 1 News. Today is June 22nd, and we're doing business and security news.
Big announcements from red and blue this week. We will start with blue.
Intel tries to get chip manufacturing back on track with Intel 4 due in 2023. Intel 4 outlines the details of a new process for high performance libraries for fabrication and some cool stuff that's going on. It's like, look how tiny this is. This is going to be so amazing. The bad news is it seems like Sapphire Rapids has slipped to Q1 of 2023, which is another full quarter slip.
21.5% speed increase. That sounds good, but you know what? Maybe promises a bit more.
AMD reveals RDNA 3 chiplets, 3D V-Cache for Zen 4, and Phoenix Point laptop chips.
So they were not guaranteeing, but they were promising, how much was it? It was a lot more.
Industry-leading performance per watt, greater than 50% performance increase over RDNA 2, which is already a pretty substantial bump over RDNA 1.
I think it was they doubled that time as well, right?
Yeah.
There's the roadmap. And all this new stuff needs a new kind of foundry process. It's going to get real small. They're actually getting rid of what's the one below nanometer?
Angstroms?
Yeah. They're going to have to start moving to angstroms in the tens now that we've gone below because as TSMC announces.
TSMC reveals its 2 nanometer node, 30% more performance by 2025. So this is the good spin on the headline is 30% more performance. The bad spin on the headline is that it doesn't look like it's going to be a lot more density. So yay, 30% more performance, maybe more power efficient, but maybe not a lot of density. So chips can't add a huge number of transistors. They have to be more efficient with the transistors they already have. Maybe.
I thought the negative spin on that was going to be no one's going to be able to get them.
Well, you know, it could be that exactly what you're saying because there's a Chinese blockade.
The land war in Asia is happening, finally.
And if you're one of the RISC aficionados, good news, you're about to get something that's somewhat akin to a Raspberry Pi to play with.
Ubuntu is working on providing good support for the Vision 5 low-cost RISC-V board. If you haven't seen the Vision 5, it's pretty neat. It's a little worse performance than a Raspberry Pi, but it's got a couple AI accelerators and some other stuff. It's neat. You can get it right now. It's just a bit less than $200, and Canonical is working on making it a little better. One of the Canonical guys, who's obviously an engineer, not a PR person, said, "That's weird. Fedora's graphics are way faster, and we're not really sure why."
You gotta love the honesty. I mean, in some ways, maybe those people should be in charge. You know?
At least they're not lying.
Although, in that case, you get, like with Trump, you get something unacceptable for the normies, like, you know, an attitude that people just recoil from. You would still have that, but without any of the mistruth. It would just be hard truth. I don't know if the people could accept that at all.
You know what else the people can't accept?
Yeah, well, they're going to have to because one after the other, these dominoes are falling.
Crypto hedge fund Three Arrows Capital fails to meet its margin calls. So the people that lended it money, it's having trouble paying them back in the crypto winter that we're in. And oh boy, there's going to be fallout from this.
There was another one. What was the name of the other one where they said they had to tap into some other lending, but they were going to hold it solid? They said they could hold it solid to Bitcoin at like 3,500. Although you got to have balls to hold on to that for that long. Right? That's real hodl right there. And the companies that are, they make their money off of these markets, again, Robinhood. Ooh, boy, I would not hold Robinhood stock right now. That sounds like a bad idea. But maybe Coinbase getting a little suspicious as well.
Coinbase lays off 18% of workforce as executives prepare for recession and, quote unquote, the crypto winter. This actually, this makes me feel better about Coinbase because we see some of the other places that do crypto stuff online and their business model assumed insane growth. And because they're not getting that now, they literally have no money to operate. Their money to operate was your money that you deposited with them, which is not okay for anything other than crypto because it's not regulated.
And all that unrealized gain. They're just like, we have this money. No, you don't.
No.
That's not real. It's not yours until you pull the trigger. And of course, never let a crisis go to waste. I'm so tired of this, man.
Bill Gates says that crypto and NFTs are a sham, and he's pointing at, sort of gesturing like this around everywhere saying, here, look around. Can't you see? It's obviously a sham.
Based on his pledges that are public, is there any better person to hope dies right now?
I think there are a few.
Give me one.
Putin?
Yeah, that's number one right now.
But Putin dying probably just cycles into the next despot, right? Here
I am curious to know how that's going to play out. I hope the writers come up with a good plot line for that.
we get rid of a massive douchebag, plus the world gets flooded with charity
We're
money.
hoping for season 3 of Game of Thrones and not season 7 or whatever the last season
Season
was.
8. It just sort of disappeared from the cultural discourse after that happened.
It's like, that's why he needed the sword that was made out of dragon glass. Of course.
So he could yell at the dragon in the finale. Okay.
And in the list of people who I think we could do just fine without,
Jack Dorsey's to be determined announces a Web3 competitor, Web5. We're skipping Web4, none of that. So it's a Monty Python skit. At this point, we're living a Monty Python skit with all this. This is just... Why?
Every time I read anything like Web3 versus, oh no.
that's your second spill today.
It is. He spilled some on the stairs earlier.
Oh, and you've turned over the light.
Oh.
We should leave this in.
Yeah. It's not too bad.
The gap in the table is useful for saving
It saved the soundboard.
It's like the hole in your bathroom sink. Oh, you're out of... Do we have any more?
No.
At least it smells nice.
Oh, fresh rolls.
Yeah. Grant, don't cut any of this. You're gonna watch all of it.
What is happening?
Maybe this is a new kind of mukbang where you just watch people clean.
I'm pretty sure if we put that on Twitch, they'd watch it. Yay for the microphone arms too, because no mess there.
Floor is gonna be sticky. We're gonna mop it later.
No, there's nothing in the coffee. It's just black coffee.
Will it still get sticky?
Sugar is what makes it sticky. We're gonna have to leave some napkins there because it's
It's still a little wet.
yeah.
That's fine. It's fine.
I'm just going to assume that that's how angry you are at Jack Dorsey's Web 5.
I really am because
It's garbage, right?
We're literally living in a Monty Python skit because why are we wasting energy on this? And I don't mean electrical energy, I mean mental energy.
So the idea here is kind of following what some of the other big tech companies are doing, is trying to pull the authentication onto your device and make it universal. So you don't store any data on, the platform, and your identity moves with you, but it's all Bitcoin. It's all based on Bitcoin. So I don't know how they're getting around the whole transaction cost and electricity cost thing, right?
It doesn't even need to be on Bitcoin. You could have a blockchain that, again, there's not monetary value in the coin itself.
I think they need Bitcoin just to get people interested.
Again, what an incredible way. I don't see the vision. What does he see?
There is no vision.
Did he come up with this when he was making fresh a goat? Like, what's going on?
He's probably on all kinds of hallucinogens, right? Because he's rich and he's kind of a hipster.
He's a crypto bro.
Yeah.
It's so frustrating.
Hustle culture, bro.
Well, the Google ad auctions have drawn a lot of ire. That does seem like a terrible, terrible situation. They've revised it a little bit, but nothing that really changed it all that much. And now we're able to determine that when they said they were going to anonymize everything,
Google privacy lawsuit over ad bidding process to go forward. We reported on this really well a couple of months ago it was like Google, it's this weird bidding process where it's not the highest bidder, it's the second highest bidder, because Google conceded there's often a lot of a gap between the highest bidder and the second highest bidder. But it almost looks like they were peeking into what those were in order to suppress ad prices for themselves. And Facebook sort of figured it out, and they sort of let Facebook in on it. And so this almost looks like fraud. But
collusion at the least, right?
Yeah.
I mean, it'll be interesting to see how this washes out in the trial and what evidence comes to light. I think the Apple Epic case, we're going to learn a lot more that we didn't know. And
plus they're pointing out that the anonymity they give you so many columns to choose from that the anonymity is just nothing. It doesn't exist. You can easily target whoever you want, and you can still target those things that are illegal to target if you really try hard.
Yeah.
And think outside the box. Think outside the regulations. This is a missort, but this should have been in the crypto bit. This is the other company I was trying to think of.
Celsius. Crypto lender Celsius pauses withdrawals, transfers citing extreme market conditions. It looks to me like their business model was, we'll hold your crypto and make money on your crypto, and that'll be where our operational costs come from. But in this winter of our discontent, they are not able to operate.
Now, it sounds crazy, but guess what would happen if all of the banks lost 60% of withdrawals all at once?
Nothing good.
The same thing would happen. They'd stop letting you do it.
Huh.
That's actually happened before. I don't know if it's happened in the U.S. This is a little bit of a clickbait headline. Although when you think about it, you think about how often we decouple our streaming device from our television.
Yeah.
Now, certainly the television manufacturers want you to not do that.
Yeah.
Oh, you just need the smart TV. But if you're smart, you will do that. You will find another device. And that, Wendell, you've mentioned this before, all of this ad tracking and the auctions and everything, the thing that is often never mentioned is that the people paying for these ads are not getting their money's worth. No. Not even close.
Ads playing on streaming services while the TV is off waste brands $1 billion per year. So if you get a TV hooked up to a streaming stick, the streaming stick doesn't actually pay attention to if the TV is on or off. Meanwhile, if you've got the smart app on the TV, it'll automatically stop when you turn the TV off. It knows. And so this is going to cause the brands in the industry to very vehemently lobby to do away with streaming sticks and only have those kinds of things built into TVs so that they are better able to monitor and control the experience. Some people just turn the TV off while it's streaming without actually stopping the stream. Netflix and everything else will just happily keep on playing the next thing. If you're on something like Hulu where they have ads, or HBO Plus, well, yeah, it's like, hey, you might want to watch this new show. And then if it doesn't stop, if you don't stop it from playing the next show when you get to the end of a show, it will
autoplay.
Yeah, just keep on going. And then you see ads, and then they charge you as if you saw it, but the TV was actually off. But it turns out that HDMI, the streaming stick, can know if the TV is off or not. That's how they know some of this. And so they just need to make the software. We don't need to do away with streaming sticks. We just need to, if that matters to advertisers, then people selling the ads can do that. But there's a disincentive for people that have streaming sticks to do that, because then their revenues go down because they get a cut.
And I wouldn't want that streaming stick.
Yeah.
I'd buy the old one.
Yeah.
Until the video limitations forced me to upgrade.
It's also not a problem on like laptops and tablets and other devices like that, because again, the application and the viewing device are coupled together.
I kind of hate this idea that seems to be becoming like more prevalent where advertisers like they don't just want you to look at their ad, they force you to watch it.
It requires your attention.
Yeah.
It is not merely enough that it is playing.
Well, but
Yeah.
we've gotten so good at ignoring it.
Right.
They have to keep escalating and finding ways to make
I
us
find
watch
that so offensive in every possible way.
Yeah, I would definitely contend that the advertisers are buying the right to have the opportunity for me to see their ad, not to guarantee that I will see their ad.
Oh, they don't.
Or
they don't
respond
say
to
that.
it. Like that's the other thing is it's like it's not enough to just see it and look at it. You also need to respond positively to it. And it's like, no.
Well, ultimately, they would love it if they could require you to go and buy the product.
Yeah.
Remember, Microsoft has the patents on interactive ads where it's like, what did you see in the Doritos commercial? And it's like, those are really, like, you can get a lot
That's
of
going to
money.
end up on Twitch sooner than later. You watch because they've been really amping up the ads on Twitch.
That's going to be funny to see. Well, we'll never get to see it, but I would love to. I wouldn't love to work at one of those places, but if you do work at one of those places, one of the fringe benefits would be able to go through the crazy answers that people give.
Yeah. It'd be nicer to have things like health insurance, but good to look at people's answers would be a perk.
Would you like to do a participate? Your colonoscopy, you can get $100 off if you participate in the Nike challenge. And it's like, oh, okay, I guess.
That 4chan green text.
Drink verification.
Yeah, the drink verification can, that was like just a look into our future.
You know for sure that Coke and Pepsi have both looked into the verification.
Yeah.
can.
Yeah, they're like,
they've got a
oh,
team
that was a good
working on it.
idea.
Yeah. They might have been looking at it before that.
Does all of this madness stem from corporate personhood? Is that what we need to end to stop this madness?
Well, other countries are having the same problem.
No.
So I've been reading a little bit, and this is hopeful. Well, this is hopeful if you're an ant. It's not if you're a grasshopper. And there's a lot of you out there who are grasshoppers. But if you have some money right now and you're able to hang on to it, and still feed yourself, we may be seeing a giant wave of price crashes because the inventory is back where it was, I think in like 2001 or something like that. And it's straight up. Usually when that happens, you get a whiplash effect and it goes straight down. And then all this inventory is out there and they can't get rid of it. So they just slash prices. I'm hoping right around the fall to see that. That would be beautiful. Probably bad for the economy, but
Samsung temporarily reduces procurement amid inventory pressure. South Korean tech giant asks component makers and others to delay shipments. It's a little difficult to unpack from this article, but basically what's going on is Samsung doesn't want to buy parts, and Samsung is harassing the people to buy stuff from them to say, hey, you need to take delivery of stuff or we're not going to manufacture stuff. You told us that you're going to have a bunch of sales, then you need to get this stuff out of our warehouse or we're not going to be able to deliver your next order or your next order on time.
And suddenly no one has any money to buy anything.
Yeah.
So we had the chip shortage. They did everything they could to ramp up those supply lines. And now all of a sudden, hyperinflation, raise the rates, and everybody's just like, I don't need a new phone. Sorry.
It's like a slinky where it's just every time they think they get it, it catches up one way or the other.
And of course, if you're really good at trading the market, you can catch that wave, but that would be a difficult thing to do. Remember that time that Samsung got caught cheating on their phone benchmarks?
That doesn't sound like them.
Do you think that the whole company got a memo about that? Do you think the TV division was included in that memo?
Yeah, they got that memo, I'm sure. Samsung has been caught cheating in TV benchmarks and promises a software update. It's actually pretty genius, though. The TV doesn't really have a way of knowing what's going on, so it has to look at what you're displaying on it. And it's like, this looks like a test pattern. And so because it looks like a test pattern, the TV operates outside of its normal parameters to do with things like nits of brightness, because it looks like a test pattern in order to make it look like it better complies or performs better than it really does, which really suggests a lot. Like if they're doing that for benchmarking for people that review their displays, are they doing that also for identifying content to sell to advertisers? You really
Surely,
don't want a smart device.
If you could do one, you could certainly do the other.
Yeah.
Right?
It was a mistake putting that level of computation in televisions.
Especially any TV program that has like a lower third or something.
Yeah.
You could have a perfect identifier for every different station.
Yeah.
Well, Photoshop went to the subscription model, and I think most people hated that. and now they're going to probably something even more oppressive.
Adobe plans to make Photoshop on the web free to everyone. For now, it's testing a freemium version in Canada. It's free with basic features, but maybe you pay a few extra bucks to get a more featureful version. This will be great for Adobe because it will really suppress anybody building an Adobe suite or a Photoshop competitor. Because it's like, well, the web version is good enough. Why would I spend time developing something else?
And they'll probably identify the features used most by the freemium people and get rid of those.
Yeah.
Over time, yeah.
And make them pay for it. After maybe you've established a business where you need that, and now it's gone.
I really would like to crop this photo for you, but I'm going to need you to watch this 30-second ad.
Oh.
Drink verification, Ken.
I feel like there's enough alternative programs that I can't imagine that Adobe's on top anymore, but maybe they are, I guess, for corporate clients, but...
Just like everyday computer users, it seems to still have a really hard time telling the malware from like not malware.
Yeah.
And so it's like, I need a free photo editing program. There is a non-trivial chance that they're going to download something that's going to wreck their computer.
Do you know how many App Store scams there are
Yeah.
for photo editing?
Yeah.
And my dad has every single one of them.
Yeah, exactly.
And it's
exactly.
a nightmare. Yeah.
And so eventually the learned behavior is you just have to go trust Adobe. That's what they're trying to capitalize on here. And it's sad. It's really sad.
Also, I mean, we use the word Photoshop as a verb.
Yeah.
It's part
But
of
I mean,
our language.
I guess maybe because I am someone who has tried different ones, but like GIMP and Krita and
no one's
Procreate.
heard of that.
Yeah, those are all such good programs, though. They're such good alternatives. And several of them are free or very low cost, one-time cost.
I don't think, I almost said that I don't think anybody will miss this, but actually I think there's a lot of Chinese developers that will.
Yeah,
'Cause
also
there's-
government.
Yeah.
June 15th, the end of the Internet Explorer era is here. Oh, we should update our Death of Flash mug.
To the death of Internet Explorer.
I love our Death of Flash mug. It's great.
Can the new one be urinating on the grave?
Safari raising from the grave in its place.
And when you get big tech, they're usually going up against government or tiny companies that they're trying to destroy. But here we have two titans locking horns, and it has to do with green energy, which makes it a wild debate.
Is Warren Buffett's versus Google, Facebook in the latest wind farm debate. So this is really interesting. This isn't covered a lot of places. This is from the Hindustan Times.
Small paper.
Gosh, why wouldn't they cover this in our media? Maybe because it's saying bad things about windmills?
I tried to look up what the opposition. So there were some news outlets that tried to get comments out of Google, Facebook, and Microsoft, more than the Hindustan Times, I think. And in the articles that I saw, they didn't respond. They just referred people to their brief. And the brief just says, we really think Warren Buffett's venture should consider alternatives. And we're not really sure that this is in the best interest of customers for the best price on electricity. And that's all it says. So this is a wind farm that's going to have marginally more expensive electricity, according to Buffett's projections, and pay an 11-point-something% return for investors. And the chief complaint in the big providers is that electricity is going to cost slightly more. And they're trying to find ways to not directly complain that electricity is going to cost more, but really the main complaint seems to be that electricity is going to cost more.
Well, that's wild because in their press releases, all I ever hear them talk about is green energy and saving the
that's
earth.
weird.
They're not willing to pay just a little bit more in electricity.
It's almost like these companies only care about money.
But you also have to think about this from the other side because it drives me crazy how people are like, oh, these oil companies are evil. They're only after money. What do you think Warren Buffett is doing? You think he's doing this for your benefit? No, he wants to make money.
Warren Buffett sees that 11% return as we enter some sort of economic meltdown, and he's saying 11.75% return. That's pretty good.
Yeah, that's great. Green energy is trying to make money. I hate to break it to you. Everybody's trying to make money. And they are also using the government to try and get a leg up on the other companies.
And 11% is a great margin. It's not like what was the last quarter? The oil industry profits were at a record, and the gross margin was more than 11%.
Well, I think that had to do with the bounce back from Coke from the thing, but
I can't say it on YouTube.
but yeah, well, there's no secret that the oil companies have been getting outsized profits for what they deliver.
We're going with the lesser of two margins. I mean, evils.
But are we though? We don't know. We're just giving the green people the benefit of the doubt,
Oh, yeah.
and it's like, well, they haven't shown us anything. I don't know. I keep seeing memos about how the lights are going off.
Listen, if that
Well, that's our current grid. That's mostly powered by coal.
green wind energy outfit can sell power to Texas somehow during the peak demand, they're going to make all that money back and more.
Yeah. That's,
Did anyone? Oh, that's a good question. So I heard that there were huge outages in like Columbus. Did anyone in our audience deal with that this last week?
that was storm related, though, right?
Yeah.
Well, they said it was storm related, and then the power was out for like 3 days.
I think
Because
had to
they were load
rebuild-
shedding.
Yeah, they had to rebuild some of those lines to be able to get the. I think could have been lying about it.
And loss of water in Texas. How's that? How did that
Yeah.
go?
Is anyone in our audience in either of those areas? Have you dealt with heat wave
It's
power
almost,
outage?
It's almost like the very basics of our country are breaking down.
Yeah.
Well, you want to go to space? Unfortunately, they have chosen the worst possible way for you to go to space. This is disgusting.
Moon DAO will pick 2 of the next Blue Origin astronauts with the help of NFTs. This has got to come direct from Bezos, right? It's like, people aren't talking enough about Blue Origin. How do we get in the news? And it's like, NFTs?
I hope they get somebody. They pick somebody who's just absolutely out of their mind.
Oh, yeah. Like a real weirdo.
Yeah, and
Gary
they show
Busey.
up. They show up with all kinds of like, they're preaching the entire time and screaming and ripping their clothes off. And what are you going to do?
They have a locket with Jeff Bezos' face in it.
General Motors is still facing the supply crunch, and I think it's been long enough. They said, you know what? We're going to have to solve this problem ourselves.
GM 3D prints 60,000 parts to keep Tahoe deliveries on time. Now, obviously, it's more money to set up and 3D print parts than it is to set up a tooling line. But if you already have the 3D printers and you don't have the warehouse space to set up generic machines, then this is a reasonable stopgap. Now, these are nice metal 3D printers.
This looks 200 grand a pop, so we got about 1.5 million in 3D printers running here. They needed 60,000 of those things. It took them, I think, a month or two. It was this thing right here. That's what they needed. It's weather stripping. It's a special kind of substrate, and they say that you can use that at home, but you probably shouldn't because you'll kill yourself.
So you're saying I can't use it at home.
Well, you could.
Looks like they got some fancy fume extraction.
Yeah, those hoods that are over the top there. Critical.
Don't breathe the microplastics.
Don't breathe this.
And another week, another EV has been recalled. Wow, we are seeing this just time after time. We used to crap on Tesla, but it turns out nobody can get this right.
Ford issues stop sale of electric Mustang Mach-E crossovers due to potential safety defect. For the past 2 years, vehicles made at a certain plant in Mexico may have battery terminal overheating, which will cause the terminals to eventually catastrophically fail. The car won't catch on fire, but the batteries will no longer be connected and you will lose power. Even possibly while you're driving.
Is that just the battery melting?
Well, it's the
The
contacts. Yeah. And inflation, ooh, it's coming. And sometimes the suppliers will try to eat it for a certain amount of time. And we know that Elon Musk was smart and he bought a lot of those rare earth metals and resources and stuff. He stockpiled them. I guess he's run out.
Tesla significantly increases its electric car prices across its lineup. Remember when that one car that was like $80,000 and it was like, goodness gracious, $80,000. It's now like $129,000.
Well, that's because the subsidies are gone too. So the Y got the smallest increase, 2,500. Or I'm sorry, that's the 3. And then the Y was a little bit more, like $5,000, I think. But the S and the X were the worst. Oh yeah, 135,900.
Ooh.
Whew.
That's the plaid though. That's like the pimpest one.
Apparently, so I was talking to my younger cousin. That's why I wasn't here last week. I was taking them to a dinosaur tour. And when we were driving, of course, they like to look at cars because they're little boys. And they were super excited every time we saw a Tesla.
I can't see why, because just look at how
That was the one that they were like, a Tesla!
look how offensively
Drive
ugly.
faster so we can see the Tesla! Like,
That is a disgusting car.
I don't know, kids love it.
Well, kids are stupid.
They are stupid. They can't even drive, but they're excited every time they see a car or a fire truck.
Do you think they'd be excited if they saw one burst into flames?
Yeah, oh, absolutely. That would be cool. Yeah.
Well, you know what? What company is bursting into flames?
Oh, no good news here.
They had one huge miss last week. This week they had an announcement that I think could be counted as a huge miss. And they're sweeping some stuff under the rug that we all know does
Yes.
not belong under the rug.
Activision Blizzard clears itself of any wrongdoing. Wow, that's generous of itself, isn't it?
You're sweeping it under the rug. There's a body-shaped lump under the rug at this point.
And a fluid leaking out.
Oh. And then there's the Activision developers who are just crawling around playing night crawlers under the desks.
That's got to make people angry. They said that there were a few isolated incidents, but it wasn't the culture of that. So, I mean, that doesn't sound like no wrongdoing to me.
Yeah, so like you still had incidents. So like, what are you doing to prevent them in the future? Nothing.
And they had who were supposed to be independent, like observers, but the main guy in charge of the committee was from Activision Blizzard,
Yeah.
which is kind of like, well.
Of course, you're not going to find anything wrong. You're getting paid.
And of course, Krista, we've talked about your record. Well, it's probably not a record, but you have so many loot boxes.
I
in
do. I
Overwatch.
don't open them because I don't care.
I think we said your count was like over 1,500, right?
I think so. Last
And
time I
every
looked.
time you stream it on Twitch, people are like, open the boxes. Oh my God. Because loot boxes have a hold of people's minds.
Yeah.
So that's why it's controversial. They're saying, well, we're going to get rid of that. But they're replacing it with something that
Way
was maybe worse.
Overwatch 2 will get rid of loot boxes, and they're replacing it with a battle pass and a store.
What is going on?
And if you look at their roadmap for Overwatch 2, 90% of the new content is like new skins. So this is basically just a microtransaction farm now.
And free to play.
Yeah.
Going free to play. And didn't you say they're delaying because it was supposed to be.
It was supposed to be, so the game, when it first launched Overwatch 1, it was PvP only. For Overwatch 2, they're like, oh, we're going to do a campaign mode. It's going to be story-based PvE. Now they're saying the PvE stuff, they're just going to delay that till like end of 2023.
That's a long time for people to lose interest.
Yeah. I don't think that they're going to win anyone over with this weird
Although,
strategy.
With crushing inflation and the economy circling the toilet, free games probably are going to get a tick up, don't you think?
Yeah, I think moving it free to play is not necessarily the problem. It's more just the aggressive monetization and the fact that they're removing like 6 maps from rotation. And they're like, we're going to add 6 maps, though. And it's like, well, really, that's still the same amount of maps. And then
Well,
you're just adding like 60 skins instead.
But isn't that, I mean, when you create a new game, isn't that the idea that we should have all new maps?
Yeah.
Like,
So, yeah, they're like wanting a pat on the back for something that we've been expecting for years.
I don't know if we've seen any numbers, but my assumption is Diablo Immortal is actually making money.
Seriously?
Despite, well, I don't know. But why else would they announce this right now?
Yeah.
Well, probably because they were supposed to, but is it maybe the Chinese market for Diablo Immortal?
Well, I think in that business model, you do rely on a very tiny percentage of people to pay
whales, yeah.
overwhelming amounts. So if you could do that for Overwatch,
I think that the thing that's going to make a lot of money that, and I'm surprised Blizzard hasn't picked up on this because they're exactly the company to do this, is the whole like Dota and Squid Game crossover. It's like, oh yeah, a whole bunch of new Dota 2 players, but you're competing for grocery money this week.
and what if you had to buy a new game license every participation? Real death. That's just gambling at that point. Isn't it?
I think that's what all the games are going toward, though. It's just going to be gambling for cosmetics. Like they're adding gun charms to Overwatch 2. And it's like, well, who cares about that?
What's a gun charm?
It's literally just like a little keychain that goes on your character's gun.
Oh, that's tactically not something you want. You don't
No,
want,
and
you don't want stuff hanging
they're
off
also
your
adding
gun.
hats.
Oh,
And
that's
like,
Team Fortress.
Team Fortress. I was like, really? What year is it?
I noticed when we were all playing PUBG the other day that some of the people, when we would pick up their weapons, it's like super customized weapon skins. And
Yeah,
just
that's
crazy
how they
stuff.
get money now.
Yeah.
I just want to play the game.
Well, maybe, Krista, you can play that game, and you might even be able to play it while you are sailing the high seas. Although, who would go on a cruise right now?
I don't
Seems-
ever want to go on a cruise.
Seems like a bad idea right now.
Royal Caribbean may add Elon Musk's Starlink internet service to its cruise ships. That is not what the headline should be. The headline should be Elon Musk brilliantly recruits Royal Caribbean to help him harass the FCC to certify Starlink for use on moving vehicles because, oh boy, does he have a lot of people in RVs that want to buy Starlink.
And plus, he's got the airlines now, too, fighting for him.
Yeah. The FCC has not yet certified Starlink for use in a moving vehicle because...
Well, Elon Musk, you know, he's made some good business decisions. We can't take that away from him. He is the world's richest man. And often I think, at least I believe incorrectly, that when you get to a certain level like that, that you gain a kind of poise and maybe self-reflection and understanding. But no, he's still just a petulant little boy.
SpaceX has fired an employee who wrote an open letter complaining about Elon Musk. He criticized the letter as overreaching activism. Meanwhile, he's going to promote free speech on Twitter. What kind of clown world is this?
Yeah, this person called him an embarrassment, and it did not sit well with him. They called for him to step down because they pointed out, they had some decent points, that he made the Bitcoin bet. Mm-hmm. That's not going to help anybody at Tesla.
No.
And that he is distracted with Twitter. Mm-hmm. Well, yeah, that's fair. And that the whole SEC thing, all that hurt Tesla. Had to. SpaceX, on the other hand, killing it.
Killing it, but there's a very unpleasant, strong smell coming from his office.
From under that rug?
Yeah.
Well, moving on to security, we have some terrifying new problems with CPUs, but this is one of those things where it's like, is anybody really going to go to this trouble? I mean, probably the Chinese government, right?
Yeah.
I don't know if we got a lot of other people that are going to do it.
A new vulnerability in Intel and AMD CPUs lets hackers steal encryption keys. Hertz bleed attack targets power conservation features on virtually all modern CPUs. It's actually pretty brilliant. There's some cryptographic algorithms that are designed assuming that they have constant execution time, but on modern processors that have, boost algorithms, the processor will boost its clock speed opportunistically. So it turns out that information can actually be used to steal cryptographic keys, because when the boost algorithm, or when the cryptographic algorithm is not really doing anything, you can sort of figure that out from the power side of things.
And then you can grab that key. That's bad. And this one's also bad. I got to wonder that, I guess maybe the BlackBerry engineers just don't have anything else to do.
For their 10 users.
They got plenty of time to delve into this kind of thing. But this one's also terrifying.
Symbiote, a new, nearly impossible to detect Linux threat. So this is a threat that exists mainly just in main memory. It can be used to
That photo's terrifying.
turn your server into a part of a command and control system. But it's not out to send spam or mine Bitcoin. It's part of some larger operation, and it seems to be targeting financial companies in South America.
It can maintain its presence, though, and it can deploy other malware and then hide that malware. So this is more of a foot in the door kind of thing, but it's a foot in the door. It's going to be tough to get rid of. I don't think we've seen that in the wild yet, though. And I think this is, once again, another horrifying thing that might hurt us really bad, but we haven't seen it yet.
Researchers discover a new hardware vulnerability in the Apple M1 chip. So this is actually a vulnerability in a mitigation technology that is new and unique to Apple. Apple has what they call like a pointer verification or a pointer auditing thing. It's a mechanism that adds a couple of extra bits when dealing with pointer arithmetic on the stack or anything else. So if the program has a bug such that a pointer can be exploited to read something it's not supposed to, this will catch that. However, you can create speculative execution scenarios where code is not actually executed but is speculatively executed, which will then leak what the authentication key is. So if you have a pointer vulnerability, this is just an extra step that you have to go through in order to mitigate that mitigation.
Doesn't add any vulnerabilities, but it could make you think you're safe when you're not.
Yeah. It just means that developers aren't actually going to use this hardware feature that Apple added because...
What do you think they spent on that R&D?
Somebody was real happy that they came up with that, and now it's just like, oh.
The thing that shocked me most about this story was the incredibly brilliant forethought of Madonna.
Oh yeah, genetic paparazzi are right around the corner, and courts aren't ready to confront the legal quagmire of DNA theft. So Madonna, with her concerts, she would insist that she have her own toilet seats. She would install her own, like her crew would come and install toilet seats and take them back with them when she left. And they would also have to disinfect everything. And the reason was because she didn't want her DNA stolen, because apparently you can do useful things with it.
Also, all the various leaders who have visited with Mr. Putin lately, they've all turned down the PCR test.
Yeah, it's because it would be administered as like, what are you going to do with that? Are you going to, what's going on?
And also, they point out that the big table was maybe not just his request. It might have been Macron also saying he wanted that because he didn't want to get close enough for any sort of harvesting of his DNA.
Or just poisoning or anything.
There's a lot of reasons you don't want to get close to Putin, right?
Yeah.
He literally and figuratively has cooties.
We don't know that for sure.
That's slander.
And here's a story that, I mean, we've certainly covered this theme over and over and over. And obviously, the rule that you should follow is there are some devices that don't need to be on the internet. This device, never any reason for it. Never.
Strange brew. Americans warned of China possibly spying through smart coffee makers. I was helping somebody install their washer and dryer last week, and because they got a new washer and dryer, and I was looking through the manual in the washer, and it had GPL license notices, and it was like, what is going on with a washing machine that it's got GPL code in it? And it turns out that it can send push notifications to your phone when it's done. It's like, no, it's good. Just beep.
Yeah.
Beeping is fine.
Or in my case, mine goes so loud that it gets picked up on my mic during the stream.
See, you've got the old
Yeah, we have
the
old
analog ones,
Yeah.
which are the superior ones by far. So we don't actually know that they're spying on our coffee makers, but it has been proven that in China, these coffee makers will report back.
Yeah.
And they found that, it was going, I don't know if they were for sure it was going to the Communist Party, but what are the odds, right? However, they do sell these here.
This researcher should look into this for televisions and things other than coffee pots, because it turns out, like, if you set up anything and you monitor all the traffic from that thing on the internet, it will surprise and shock you exactly how much traffic is exchanged with things overseas. It is bananas.
I think the argument here, though, is that we kind of expect that from our TVs. As sad as the reality as that is, we're kind of like, okay, yeah, maybe the TV's doing that. But the coffee maker?
The coffee maker, the sous vide machine, the crock pot, the slow cooker. What is going on?
Well, like a TV advertises to you directly, so it's like, oh, of course they'd be harvesting your data to advertise to you more. But like, why would your coffee maker do that?
Well, it's going to advertise to you too, Krista.
Ugh.
Yeah, well, that data, at least, if nothing else, it shows them where the penetration of their coffee makers are in that market.
Yeah.
And where to we don't sell any coffee makers in Wyoming. Let's try to fix that.
How long until technologies like Elon Musk's Starlink, they start putting radioactive isotopes that are completely harmless to humans, but show up like a beacon on those satellites, and then they can just scan the eastern seaboard from space and say, there's the penetration of our coffee makers, because we've learned to block all that on the internet.
They would never do that.
I hate this reality that we even have to think about that.
I'm pretty sure that's in some science fiction somewhere.
We have so much incredible technology and we just use it to sell things. Isn't that sad in many ways?
Because we as a species, see, this is the part that people think that we're naturally good, but we're not.
No,
We're
not.
constantly trying to figure out how to get an advantage. That's how we're built. We're built to try to find an advantage. Yeah. Well, no, all animals are like that, but we're just really good. We're just amazing at it.
We're really good at it in a very sociopathic kind of way, on average.
But I think sociopathic is just like, that's kind of the baseline, right? We've built morals on top of it, but it's totally artificial. I'm not saying it's bad. I'm just saying that not everybody plays by the rules. And when not everybody plays by the rules, playing by the rules is stupid.
When you find out not everybody plays by the rules, people get violently angry. Maybe that's an evolved reaction.
We can't talk about that. What, are you suggesting real change?
Cut.
We want you to be really angry about Nancy Pelosi's stock trades instead. It's like, okay.
I'm angry about that too.
Yeah, there's lots of anger.
I can
go
be
around.
angry about that and my coffee maker at the
At the
same
same
time.
time,
Maybe I should take out my anger at Nancy Pelosi's stock trades on my spying coffee maker.
I need to check and see how the Nancy Pelosi bot is doing, because the last time I checked, it was still up $500, even in this market.
Well, that's all we've got for business and security. See you Friday.
Bye. Hello, welcome back to Level 1 News. Today is June 24th, and we're doing robot, space, and nonsense today.
And we'll start with a headline that we've seen before. I guess maybe they did trial it in other areas, but you didn't hear much about it. I'm always excited about this, and then we see the headline, and then I can't use it.
Amazon set to launch drone delivery in California. No, really this time. Really, we promise. Really. There it is. It'll deliver to residential addresses where it can drop it in your backyard, basically. There's not really a lot.
From a safe height, they said. What do you think that height is?
20 feet.
I was going to say like 10.
That might not be safe for the package, though.
Yeah, well, it's probably fine.
And it has a new avoidance system for children, dogs, power lines, and so forth.
What if you have backyard chickens?
Well, it's never going to get low enough.
For the chickens to...
Maybe they could flap up there real quick, just like burst up there and attack.
Chickens would probably be pretty scared of a drone. They'd probably think it was like a hawk.
100%. There's going to be some company that makes like an Amazon landing zone thing that you get. It's like a kit that you get from Amazon, and it's like 4 stakes that you nail into the ground, and it's a big target, like a big gray target. It's actually canvas, so the package will like land on that, but it gently cushions it like a trampoline or something.
Well, I think the Walmart one had a tether and those little friction activated clamps, and it would come all the way down and just lay it down. That seems like a better idea. Now, here's the thing about this scenario, right? Is we use drones to herd animals, like sheep and cattle and stuff. What happens when you got horses in your horse paddock, and here comes the drone, and the horses stampede, jump the fence, and get hit by a truck?
Ooh.
That's going to happen, right?
It's an edge case, but it probably will eventually.
Does your insurance policy cover drone attack?
You got to cover the horse and the truck.
Huh. And the horse might not die. Maybe it just, gets hurt and then you have to pay for the vet bill.
Even worse. Lingering, lifelong chronic conditions for your horse.
I think most ranchers would probably just quietly put the horse out of its misery.
Maybe that was a family horse,
You don't know.
Save the family from a fire when it was young. Well, going to Mars, boy, that seems like a little bit more of a pipe dream now that the economy is crumbling, doesn't it? But I guess we're still doing it.
SpaceX wins an environmental approval for the launch of the Mars rocket. That doesn't mean they're going to do it, but they did place conditions on the flight and a couple other things. But hey, you could actually launch a Mars rocket.
So this one's from Texas instead of Florida. And it seems like maybe the local Texas regulators were like, yeah, we're definitely letting this happen no matter what. Because a lot of people who were against this, some of the regulatory people were like, no, this is terrible for the environment. What are you saying? This is a rocket. Which, after playing Factorio, that checks out.
Yeah.
They did not care for that rocket.
No, they did not.
When do you sound like you have like kind of a lingering PTSD after launching the last rocket in Factorio?
I've been playing a little bit here and there just to try to keep, to try to figure out. It turns out artillery was actually very effective at eliminating the far out bases.
Wouldn't that just evolve them faster though?
So far, yeah. It's they've got a longer range now than the laser turrets. It's a bit of a problem.
Do you think that's what happened with the Russian conscripts? They got shelled so much that they evolved, and now they're
now they're stronger. They take more shots.
Well, Elon Musk is not the only game looking to put things in space. Of course, we got Blue Origin and we got Virgin Galactic. But we've also got some other names that you don't hear as often. Maybe this is why.
Low-cost Astra rocket suffers upper stage failure. 2 NASA satellites lost. But you read into the story a little bit more, and they actually did expect to lose some of their rockets. NASA, the guy from NASA seems, I think his quote was something like, well, if we still get, like a couple of launches and like 4 or 6 satellites, that's still a win.
I don't know. If I was going to contract with a space company, my first question would be, do you expect to lose rockets? And I want that answer to be no.
It seemed to work out okay for Planet Express.
Musk lost some rockets early on.
Yeah.
Had quite a few explosions. This was the huge story last week. Unfortunately, it happened on Friday.
It literally happened right after we did the news.
Yeah. But that's nice because now we've had time to kind of look into it. And I think my opinion is this guy's just insane.
I don't know if that's just the way the articles are written, if they're portraying him to be a little more wacky than he really is. But
that's certainly, if Google was controlling the narrative,
yeah,
that's probably what they'd go for, right?
Right.
So you have to be suspicious of that.
Google engineer who
MSN
thinks the company's AI has come to life. So Blake Lemoine,
I think is probably
Lemoine. I don't know how you say that.
A picture of him. No, MSN doesn't pull the pictures through ever for the pay. Oh, here we go.
Oh, there's one. What's kind of an ominous photo?
Not a very flattering photo.
No.
It's a conversational chatbot, but it's very good at conversation. And he says that, it's introspective about itself. It knows that it's an AI and it knows a whole bunch of other things. And it seems like, he says it seems like you're conversing with a person.
These pictures.
They're very dramatic. Like that's also makes me wonder, like, who took these photos and why did
Well,
they take them this way?
When we learn about him, we learn that he is also very dramatic.
Yeah.
But the big thing about this, the big thing that like the talking point that he has is the script, the chat log where the AI said it didn't want to die, didn't want to be turned off.
Right.
And it saw that as death. Who cares?
Yeah, I kind of think that maybe he's reading a little too much into it.
You got the impression that he didn't fit in at Google at all.
Yeah.
But again, if Google was controlling this narrative,
Who can say?
that's
All
what
right.
you get.
I don't think that this is probably real, but
If it was real, how would the reaction be different?
And if it was real, we're all doomed anyway, right?
Yeah.
Because Google has it.
Well, it doesn't I read the transcripts, and it doesn't seem like the AI is particularly malicious. It seems very what's the where you just resign to fate? You're
But-
nihilistic.
see, I didn't think the transcripts were that impressive, but
But here's the thing. When you think logically, when you reject the whole idea of we're special and we were put here for this and this all belongs to us, then what you ultimately come down to, if you believe that, climate change, global warming, we're at a catastrophic trajectory, the only answer is depopulation.
Yeah.
The only answer is depopulation. That's the answer an AI will come to. We can't have that. I mean, even though the only answer is depopulation, there's no good way to go about it.
There was some other interesting stuff in thing, like they tried to, that part of his job was to try to make sure that the AI was like quote unquote safe, because like when we were doing GPT-3, it seemed to really, really, really want to go to like furries really quickly, and it's like, did it learn that?
oh, it was because
But
that
that's,
AI,
it's being trained.
Yeah.
with people who are writing weird fanfic on it.
Yeah, at no point did I think the GPT-3 thing was sentient, and I don't think this is sentient either.
Yeah.
But it is easy to see how if you have a system that is maybe an order of magnitude or two more complicated than this, maybe it would be indistinguishable from sentience. Is that in itself sentience? I don't know. Those are really tough questions.
Well, and some people have pointed out, like, it doesn't necessarily matter if it is or not. If an average person looks at that and thinks it is that what matters? The perception is what matters.
And I don't think that that's what this is. Like this. There's clues that suggest that it's not what that is. But in an order of magnitude, you might be right, and with an order of magnitude more complexity. But it does say a couple of interesting things. Like there's safeties in there, and so he tried to get it to take on the persona of a murderer, and the best they could get it to do was to have the persona of an actor who plays a murderer on TV. And it's like, that's pretty interesting.
He did get it to agree that maybe it would be good to violate the Asimov law about sacrificing itself rather than harming a human.
Yeah.
It was like, well, maybe you got some good points about that. Like maybe I should kill humans. So
Anyway, pick up your shotgun and
Remember Bender from Futurama is like, hey, sexy mom, I want to kill all humans.
that's where we're headed.
That was the joke in Futurama too. Just the whole, spread to another planet, do the thing, blah, blah, blah. But it is really interesting to see the reactions. And also the lead researcher at Google, remember we did the story where they were derided for saying it's like, it's starting to achieve something that vaguely resembles consciousness. That event was connected to this one. And that was, almost a year ago.
Google for sure doesn't want anybody saying anything dangerous about AI.
Right, yes.
Even though AI could be insanely dangerous.
Yeah.
But one robot, actually two robots, that we can be sure we never have to fear again are these two beautiful robots on Mars. They're doing God's work, they're learning, and they're making new friends.
NASA's Perseverance rover on Mars has a pet rock along for the ride. There's a rock that got trapped in a wheel somehow, and it's just hanging out. It's just staying there.
Now, do you think there's a stationary track that the tread is rotating around? Or, because wouldn't, as it rotates up, the rock would have to tumble? Is
That's
that
what I
what's
was
happening?
thinking, yeah.
Yeah.
You think that's what's going on?
Yeah, but the rover moves so slowly that the rock never really slides out.
It also looks like there's a little bit of a camber there.
Yeah.
So I think the rock is just falling back into the well every time.
Yeah.
Now, they say that once it starts going uphill, it could be lost. We should start a betting site.
We'll do it on Twitch because we have the bet system.
So, yeah.
You can bet your Twitch bubbles.
You can see all the shots they're getting of it. It's a different kind of rock from where it's going. So they talk about if it deposits that rock somewhere and, we lose the memory of that rover, future Mars
be
archaeologists,
confused,
they'll be like,
yeah.
what is this rock doing here?
There's no weather here. There's no animals.
Now, this one I thought would be a gotcha headline because it would be based on numbers and not percentages. But it turns out, even with percentages, there's a lot more.
Data likely shows Teslas on autopilot crash more than rivals. And a lot of people were really mad last week because the story about the National Highway traffic safety thing continuing to investigate Tesla had just hit the news, but why had not hit the news. This is why. This shows that there's a few very specific cases that the traffic highway safety people have all of the data points. And it shows that autopilot was engaged in a couple of accidents that Tesla said that it was not engaged, but that it was disengaged like 0.75 seconds before the collision. And so Tesla...
Yeah, you grab the wheel and stomp the brake. But you do, to be fair, the GM Super Cruise and maybe one other competitor, they don't operate on every kind of road.
Yeah.
There's a very specific list of highways that they operate on. So it's going to be a lot easier for them. But is that maybe an argument that Tesla should do the same because they're not ready?
Right, yeah. At every turn, Elon Musk has been like, full self-driving, we're ready to go. He's pushing it and advertising it in such a way that's dishonest.
And they mention that phrase over and over.
It's not full, nor is it self-driving.
And you need to be paying attention and holding the wheel.
In fact, the only word that's accurate there is driving. It is driving. Well, until it hits something. Then it stops.
Then it's just kind of coasting.
It actually stops 1 second before it would have.
Not on me. I didn't
do it.
I didn't touch it. You ever see when they're playing basketball and somebody goes and dives to save the ball and then hits it off somebody else's shin and that counts? That's what they're doing here.
Yeah.
It's the big save. Well, Krista, week after week, we never stop learning.
I've had like 3 people send this to me on Twitter.
new and terrifying powers that black holes have. And now we have not just advanced mobility, but stealth.
Astronomers may have discovered the first wandering black hole. It's wandering through the Milky Way galaxy looking for me.
It's a remnants of a planet where the researchers were trying to create unlimited free energy and they accidentally created a black hole.
Oops.
You can watch this video where they talk about this is a new way of detect. Of course, you can't look at a black hole.
You have to look at how it interacts with things around it.
But now we have a new way of doing that, and we discovered one that's just cruising around looking for trouble.
And it seems like this might be one of the first things the James Webb Telescope gets a closer look at because it's like something like Hubble found it or Hubble spotted or something. It's like, all right, let's see if we can look at the same thing with the James Webb Telescope.
Ooh, you know what? I bet that black hole was responsible for that meteoroid. It's like I got to shut that thing down or it's going to blow my cover.
It's going to find us.
Well, we learned that the DeLorean is making a comeback, and maybe that's going to create some more hype for. Why have they not remade Back to the Future? Why have they not ruined that yet?
I'm sure it's already having a script shopped around as we speak.
Clearly, people still have a lot of love for it.
Back to the Future, a sealed Back to the Future VHS tape sells for $75,000 at U.S. auction.
You ever think about what you would do with $75K like that? Certainly wouldn't have bought a VHS tape.
I would pay my energy bill for this month. Now, that belonged to Biff Tannen, and it was, in fact, the copy that the movie studio gave him. This is a one owner, direct from the source VHS tape for Back to the Future.
I feel kind of bad for that guy because he has a business card that's like, yes, I played Biff Tannen. I'm not actually a terrible person.
Did he do much after that? Maybe that was his one thing.
Not really. A few things.
Well, he's 75,000 richer.
Yeah.
Maybe he'll get a Tesla. And we keep giving more and more weapons to the Ukrainians, but those weapon systems are quite complex, and it seems like something was left out of the box.
Ukrainian troops have nobody to call to troubleshoot their Javelin missiles. The U.S. apparently sent hundreds of millions of dollars worth of Javelins to Ukraine, but did not include a telephone number for tech support.
I'm imagining like an IKEA manual where there's no pictures, or no text, it's just pictures of how to use it.
One of the trainers said that they had one of the cards because they had experience with these, and so they had one of the cards, so they called the number and they got some kind of Lockheed Martin thing, and then Lockheed Martin was like, "We can't comment on this. You don't have lose this number."
And I think it's the Javelin that has a bunch of different fire modes, right?
Yeah.
Like it's got the one that just floats over top of the tank and shoots down. But How do you explain that in icons and text? I would love to see we could probably go look at that somewhere online, right? Like what the controls really look like.
Huh.
Kristen, maybe you could do a redesign.
How would I design the manual for a javelin?
Actually, it's probably classified, but that would be like PC building simulator. It's like Javelin launch simulator where we just do a Steam game and it's got all the controls and stuff for it. And they could use that to learn the controls and the different fire modes and things like that.
They have that for firearms.
Arma, some of the stuff they added to Arma 3.
There's like a modeling game where you can go in and work the controls. I think it might be VR.
Wow.
And it's got X-ray and cutaway, so you can see everything that's happening inside the gun.
That's really cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. That would be handy if we had that. Lockheed Martin, are you listening?
I bet
They don't listen to this program except to like take notes about how high our security level should be.
I bet the ATF hates that.
Yeah.
Now here's the big question, right? Like this is a great headline, but what was the end game with the traffic barrel? Where was he taking that, and what was he going to do with it?
State troopers pull over man driving a motorized Walmart cart on an Indiana interstate.
That's sort of impressive because those scooters, you have to sit on them for them to move, and they don't have very much battery life. They have to be plugged in constantly.
Now this Wayne.com, it's a paywall alternative, but they didn't go into very many details. But one of the things they charged him with, and one of the things that they announced afterwards, was slow vehicles need to be in the right lane. So I get the impression that he was not in the right lane.
He was in the fast lane.
He was in the fast lane.
What a dick.
Pushing the barrel. And again, what would you do with that barrel once you stole it?
Who's taken to jail in Louisville?
How would you not be terrified? Like, I would be so scared if I pulled up and, like, just see this guy. You'd have to slam on your brake.
Maybe the barrel was so people would see him.
I bet they don't have any warning lights on them, right?
Oh, no. They're just,
Because why would you need that in the the produce
grocery
department?
store, yeah.
It was returned to Walmart. They must have not needed it for evidence.
Pretty impressive, though, that it's got the kind of battery life that can do interstate travel.
Just like looking at the blinking batteries, like, oh no, I'm not going to be able to make it home.
I feel like we had to charge ours every night, and if you didn't, they always died halfway through the day, and people would leave them in the parking lot.
Well, they're probably running them on like really cooked batteries at this point, right? They probably push them until they absolutely just burst into flames.
They happened to get one that had brand new batteries.
Yeah, maybe.
Maybe he went through and looked at the contacts and was like, yeah, this one goes in there.
What if that was the scam? It's like you take that and replace your e-scooter's batteries with the fresh, brand new scooter batteries from the Walmart thing, and then you take it back with your burnt out old scooter
But
batteries.
wouldn't it have been easier just to take the scooter to like the woods behind the Kroger?
Yeah, that's true.
Well, but they're hard to off-road, those little tiny wheels. Maybe the barrel was part of that. You're taking the barrel as another thing to use in this construction of it.
Oh yeah, massive props to Indiana for having an interstate so smooth that this thing didn't really have a lot of problems.
Have you been to Indiana though? It's very flat.
He's probably weaving around all the potholes. And this is just, I love to point out when our leaders have completely forgotten what their purpose is. They are so spoiled. They are so entitled that we get stuff like this.
The Lords complain of poor wine and too much salmon in Parliament. This is in the UK. I would like to do a malicious compliance for this, please. I would like to only serve bologna foldovers and like the school lunch milk.
Vienna sausage and water.
Kool-Aid with vodka instead of wine.
Yeah. Or
why are they drinking wine anyway? I know the culture's a little different, but hey, you know what? You're on the job.
And Chardonnay. It's like, the Chardonnay is of very poor quality. It's like that. You talk about a first world problem.
Yeah, they're sitting there making laws, and they're just like, you know what? Give me another glass of wine.
I'm going to give you the buffet now is going to just be bologna foldovers, Vienna sausages, deviled ham. We'll make a nice display using deviled ham, and then just
what do you call the meat and cheese board?
Charcuterie.
Yeah. That, but just like the American cheese, and like you say, all those innards products, potted meat,
just a block of Velveeta,
spam.
Velveeta isn't even really allowed to be called cheese anymore.
I think some other, just bread and butter. Yeah, that's some good poverty food.
But Wonder Bread.
Yeah. Just plain white bread.
Or store brand.
Instead of a punch bowl, it's just beans.
And I love a good animal story. This one, I really wanted more details because there has to be something.
Is this a case of mistaken identity? Something.
But an elephant never forgets, Wendell.
Who hurt you?
And this elephant for sure did not forget. It was like, I'm coming back tomorrow. Be ready. And it did.
Elephant tramples woman to death and then attacks her corpse at funeral. So this is a a 77-year-old woman, and this elephant must have recognized her or something, and it trampled her, and then came back to the funeral and threw her into the air, and then ran away.
That elephant has some death in its eyes.
I wish you would. I wish you'd try it. So
Try it, bitch. See what happens.
imagine the horrible emotional experience this is. You're burying your mother,
Yeah.
and then an elephant attacks. So there was a funeral pyre, grabs her and just throws her. But this is rural India, right? Or was this Australia? No, this was in India, right?
No.
The Australian newspaper always covers India. You have to personally go and fetch her now twisted corpse and put it back on the pyre.
Just another day on the subcontinent.
Tough day. That's a particularly tough day. No matter how you
Maybe,
slice it.
you know how elephants, like, when they find the bones of their dead families, they'll, like, caress them or whatever as, like, a funeral thing? Maybe that's what it was doing. Maybe it was just not so gently caressing.
If that's the case, he's really bad at that.
Yeah.
He should practice more often.
Tell me about the humans, George.
They should name him Lenny. You think she probably had really nice hair, right?
Yeah.
And it's like, don't muss it. Don't muss it, Lenny. Well, I'm a big proponent of throwing trash in garbage cans already.
Yeah.
It makes sense to me that throwing things on the ground will.
And yet people do.
Oh God, yeah. I'm amazed how many people I see throwing stuff out of their car windows. Still.
Yeah.
Because people are awful. Like I said,
Didn't they see the crying Native American video? That was.
But see, you don't have to be concerned about the Native American. It affects you.
Yeah.
That's your neighborhood that you're trashing.
Or
You're
even
going to
if-
have to drive past that every day.
But even if it's not, even if you're visiting another place, your attitude toward that will spur other attitudes toward it.
Yeah.
It will drag everybody down. So it's crazy. And then you think to yourself, well, like, who's going to fall for this? And you realize, oh, those people are already idiots.
Yeah.
So maybe this will work.
Sexy Swedish garbage cans seductively encourage citizens to properly toss their trash.
So
That was not a tongue twister or riddle.
it's got a couple of phrases. Oh, here we go. Yeah. Here's your phrases that it can say to you.
Come back quickly and do that again. Oh yeah, that right there. That was crazy good.
Someone's going to put that on a soundboard now.
It's going to be funny if somebody's putting a corpse in there. Oh, yeah. Please come back and do this again. And they're like, well, the robot told me to.
Positive reinforcement.
I have to appease.
Like a child.
The robot god must be appeased.
The robot god calls for human blood.
And fertilizer. Ooh, the fertilizer situation. That's terrifying, right?
Yeah.
And you wonder, is it real? Well, apparently it is, at least in Lampang. Is that how you pronounce that?
It's true here as well.
But you got no fertilizer, so what do you do? Well, there's one plant that grows quickly and is a weed. It turns out that can be used.
Cannabis replaces antibiotics as chicken farmers in Lampang go organic. So they were having trouble with their feed and growing chickens and blah, blah, blah. So they kind of did this as a desperation measure. And then they found that those chickens naturally dealt with the swampy, dank conditions there a little better. So they said, well, let's give them more. And they did. And then it's like, all right, let's try not giving them antibiotics. And then they did. And they found that the chickens, they would still get like sick or the sniffles or whatever, some kind of lung disease, but it was much milder and they would recover really quickly. And now there's some kind of immunity in among all their chickens. So they're not using antibiotics, and people are saying the meat tastes better and the eggs are bigger. And
Yeah, they did a blind taste test because they had some of them still on antibiotics and some of them were on pure cannabis. And they did a blind taste test. Everybody preferred the cannabis eggs.
interesting.
I keep thinking about raising chickens, and then I'm like, God, they're so messy. But I kind of want them.
Ducks are worse.
Yeah, my neighbor has ducks. They're fun to watch from across the fence, and I can see into their pond, but I wouldn't want to be dealing with them.
Some kinds of ducks poop every 15 minutes.
I can't even walk barefoot back there.
No, you definitely wouldn't want to. Well, we're all hurting for money. We're all crunching our budgets. But how bad do you need it?
Yeah, just look at this headline. It's like,
I looked into this. You don't have to be where they are. This is the entire contiguous United States. They will consider your application. And if it fails, they claim that they will use traditional means, but I don't think they can guarantee they will ever solve this problem.
no.
Raleigh Company will pay you $2,000 to release 100 cockroaches into your home.
They'd have to be paying me a hell of a lot more.
Well, then they're going to try an experimental treatment to deal with the infection, because you're going to end up with a lot more than 100 in really short order.
Yeah.
And like, it's not just they let them loose and then they kill them. You have to live with them for 2 months.
Ugh. No, Cricket would have so many new friends. It's a
You think
mighty hunter.
They'd make you sign something that says your cat's not allowed to kill any. That'd be the poison.
That'd be rough.
That is the big selling point, though, that they claim that their new treatment is perfectly safe for humans and animals. And you should definitely be the first one to test that.
Yeah. That's what they said about a lot of things.
Isn't there a bunch of abandoned property in Michigan that's selling for way less than $2,000?
Detroit, I think it might already have roaches.
That's what they said about
Perfect.
things like glyphosate, too.
It's a win-win for everybody.
Then we find out that they have special roaches that they're raising who, like, they've added a genetic defect that's weak against whatever that is, just so they can sell it. And, Wendell, do you have your whole bathroom hang-up thing?
Yeah, I felt that this was added for me, and yes, I will go on record as saying that if these sensors are deployed, if there was another mechanism there that would just vaporize the offender, I would be okay with that.
Drop the elevator, cut the brakes, and cut the cable.
Like the floor drops out and there's just a spike pit in the...
And there's just dead urinators on the
It's
floor.
fine. I'm fine with that.
There is no excuse for this.
No.
Well, I mean, maybe there's an excuse for this if you're like 90 years old and the elevator's stuck and you just have no... But even then, if there's any kind of container nearby.
Yeah. Boston Transit Agency to try urine sensors on elevators. And the other more disturbing thing from this article is they've already done this in a few places with great success. They're going to do it in more places. So basically, when you pee in the corner on the elevator, it's going to set off an alarm, because we as a society apparently need that. And, if ever there were a reason to just bulldoze the planet to make way for a space superhighway, there it is.
You would hate India.
What? My question is, like, how does it detect the urine? Is it just like, what if you spilled your coffee in there?
No, it's we basically have those electronic noses. Remember at the start of the pandemic?
Yeah, but okay, what if you bring
ammonia.
your infant onto the elevator and it's like
Good, yeah.
detect
Could
urine?
detect that. So it's sucking air through the top of the elevator at all times, because you need to circulate air
Right.
anyway. And so that sniffer is up there, and if it gets a certain amount of pee chemicals,
You vaporized the baby because it peed in its diaper.
Listen, it's probably a better percentage than we have on prisons for innocent people being in prison.
do you think that those detectors are good
dark.
enough to tell the difference between adult pee and baby pee?
Yeah, we could probably work
Probably
that
like a
out.
hormone or something in there, right?
Yeah.
Good to work on it.
It opens up and shows like the laser, and the mom starts screaming, and like someone has to manually check, and they're like, "Oh, it's a mom. Close it."
I'm just imagining like the safety mechanism to deal with that is like you have 5 seconds to explain why that happens to a real operator that's in like a call center somewhere. And, and one of those employees used to work for Facebook.
Oh,
And they're
no.
like, oh, the PTSD from the urine elevator is way less bad than the PTSD from Facebook moderation.
How much would you get paid to be the pee monitor?
Well, it's automated. It's just a robot.
No, there would be someone who has to double check before you throw them in the incinerator.
Yeah, it's like urine detected. If you would like to appeal this decision, press the emergency button.
In the next 3 seconds while we vaporize you now.
And then it's like you're connected with the call center and somebody's got a really thick foreign accent. It's like, hello, why are you peeing on the elevator? And it's like, oh, I'm so sorry. But your answer is anything other than that, you're vaporized.
Well, that is a terrible thing, and the world continues to be terrible because people, like we talked about with the trash thing, people just throw it everywhere. Like, we have to beg them. We have to make those garbage cans sexy in order for people to realize that they shouldn't just throw their trash wherever they want. And we're not the only ones affected by that. What about the wildlife?
Indiana man finds adult toy inside fish he caught in Ohio River.
They didn't say exactly what it was, and it's pixelated, but I think we can tell. Oh,
Yeah.
wait, where is
Is
it?
there no picture in this article?
There was a picture. Oh, here we go. It's this one.
Oh, yeah.
There was also a ball in there, like some sort of like child's ball.
That's so sad.
Yeah, it's maybe people didn't throw it away. Maybe their house was flooded and it floated away.
That's actually very much strongly a possibility.
But do you think that a fish could ever pass that out?
No.
Right? Because
No.
isn't their poop like almost liquid?
Yeah.
That's in there forever.
Yeah. That's a problem, I think, on salmon farms where they it's just the plastic just accumulates and accumulates and accumulates, and there's just.
Here's the biggest question. Here's the engagement challenge. Do you eat that fish?
No.
I think they did.
Really?
I mean, I think I probably would because it's inside the stomach, right? You're gonna throw
I
it
guess, yeah,
away
you're going to throw
anyway.
that anyway, but I don't know.
It is.
Can you eat fish out of the Ohio River? I guess it depends on what part.
Well, I doubt
Some
he
would
was.
say no.
He
Yeah.
probably wouldn't have brought it home if he couldn't do something with it, right? Maybe
The-
mount it.
There are sections, like I was looking at this the other day, of the Kentucky River where they're like, safe to fish here. Don't fish anywhere around this section because there's wastewater that comes
Yeah.
right here.
Well, I think the Hudson River probably you would never want anything
Yeah.
like that, right? It's definitely some rivers you want to stay away from. And this is just ridiculous.
Speaking of people
And
staying away from things that they shouldn't have.
I'm so angry. This guy, they finally did the press conference, and there were no answers. This was worse than our politicians.
I mean, there were answers, but they were not satisfying.
yeah, and nothing's gonna happen here. Nothing's gonna change because of this.
Uvalde Schools chief, I didn't know I was in charge.
You probably shouldn't have said the name of the town.
Oh, right.
Yeah, the place, the thing.
Yeah, I hate
Now
having to do
here's the hint. If it were me, if I was in his situation, the title chief.
that. Yeah. You probably helped sign their paychecks.
Yeah.
You should know.
I would probably think, hey, I'm in charge here.
These keys aren't working. I wonder if I have a heavy RAM in the trunk of my car that could maybe be more effectively used
Do I
to
have
open this door.
Could I maybe just call the fire department if I don't have it? Like,
Oh, they've got them.
yeah.
They got the Rams in the car because they use them on residential homes constantly. And they also have released the transcript because while they were there in front of the door, I guess there were enough body cams who got all that recorded. And the quote was something crazy. When he finally sent them in, it said something like, well, if you're ready, I guess you could go ahead. Not, you need to get in there right now.
There are people.
And again, we talked about
Frustrating.
this last week. He didn't take his radios, didn't prepare at all. And then during that hour, never found time to go back to the car. How far away was the car? Oh, here you go. If y'all are ready to do it, you do it.
He'll probably just be put on leave.
We
Paid.
Isn't the militarization thing, if we're always going on about how our police are overly militarized, blah, 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 isn't the response in this situation overwhelm? You just storm.
Yeah, when it's safe to do so. We should put that quote on a t-shirt. We should sell those t-shirts.
Oh,
Krista, and this one is going to affect you terribly. Have you noticed this at all?
I haven't noticed this. I do use tampons, but
Maybe you should stockpile.
national tampon shortage. The second part is why this is a nonsense. Tampax manufacturer links increased demand to Amy Schumer commercial.
I don't know if I
think
believe
that's
that.
true.
I don't believe that either. Not even a little.
Why are people so dumb?
They do admit that this has to do with supply chain for the base stuff that they're making out of. Although, was it plastic and cotton? Is that what's
Yeah.
in there?
Yeah.
Seems like we could get those. Seems like you could recycle some stuff and get that.
Yeah, I've thought about switching to a cup just to get around this, but also cups are kind of messy. So, though the whole process is messy, there's no good solution.
I don't even want to get into what a cup is because I'm picturing it. It sounds awful.
It's not great. Chat will know. Actually, I don't know that the chat will know since we have a large male base, but if you're a woman, you know.
One thing, maybe, like you said, thought about alternatives, but one alternative I bet you've not thought about is using witch powers to stop your menstruation altogether.
I try that every month. It doesn't work.
Well, apparently you need to
I
study.
just need to concentrate harder.
You need to change your name to a color and study under this woman.
Aaron Rodgers' alleged new girlfriend, Blue of Earth, reacts to witch allegation.
She prefers to just be called Blue. There is no of Earth.
But she does live on Earth.
I do kind of like that though. It's like a title. Like, what if I just started calling myself Krista of Earth? Like, I'm going to introduce myself on client calls that way.
I mean, that was a thing back in the day.
What,
when you would
Musk
say,
Jr. of Mars.
not of Earth, but
Well, that's what's funny about it is like everyone's from Earth.
So the thing about this, Fox News, they didn't give us a single picture of the girl. It was all Aaron Rodgers. And who cares about Aaron Rodgers? We want to see what this witch looks like. I'm guessing that she is very attractive. And you're wondering why Aaron Rodgers, who's a very popular athlete and could choose from a lot of women, I think it goes back to the Elizabeth Holmes, Grimes type thing. Beautiful and absolutely insane. There's something about it. There's a magnetism there.
Grimes is actually talented. She's a good musician. She's weird though.
She's dating
I know who you're
the
talking about.
whistleblower.
Yeah, Chelsea Manning.
Yeah.
Mm.
She like
Weird.
I feel like she sat down and said, "Who could I date that I would get even more attention?"
Yeah, I don't understand. I just want her to release her new album. And yet she won't.
You guys never watched this yet, right? Oh, you're in for some entertainment. Although you do have to pay a lot of attention because you get to read.
Yeah.
I think there's a dub version,
Dub.
but you should just read. You should do the original.
Oh, this new anime.
Yeah.
You gotta want read it. It's better.
The dub actors are always terrible.
Yeah, that's true.
But it was big. It was a big hit. And I remember, I think like Saudi Arabia or somebody did like a half-assed real version of this. But now the actual owners, Netflix, is going to do it.
Young He awaits. Netflix greenlights Squid Game reality competition series. So this is why they needed to fire all their writers.
Now you won't be killed, but you will be sent home with nothing. 456 players, and you're playing
4.56 million.
That's a big purse. You know,
Does anyone actually? I say, does anyone actually want to see that? I'm sure people will watch it.
it could be interesting. They did say that. I guess they're going to do it in Korea, but they're recruiting. You have to be an English speaker to be considered. So definitely, they're looking at this being a worldwide release. But I lost that thought completely.
Just gone.
It's just gone.
Something about language.
I don't think the whole. Is it like the real show where only one person gets the 4.56, or are they going to give some runner-up prizes?
I imagine it's probably going to be. It has to be one, right? There can only be one.
I guess we'll find out. This will be huge.
Maybe. I guess I haven't watched. Like, it reminds me too much of cable television, and I don't know who the market is for that. But maybe people will watch it if it's on a streaming service. I don't know.
You know what? It would be probably, and this is a terrible thing to say, but depending on how much danger they actually put them in, we'll decide whether or not I'll watch it.
Well, it looks like they're in a super amount of danger, but it's actually just a dressed up version of the Legend of the Hidden Temple.
Oh, what was that show that was on? This was years ago. It was Wipeout, where they would make you do an obstacle course, but it was like they would like punch you and knock you over. I imagine that was pretty dangerous.
American Gladiators before that.
Yeah,
Those gladiators would rough those people up sometimes. Joe Rogan has publicly said that he felt they went way too far on Fear Factor.
Oh, really?
Yeah, he was like, there were times when, looking back, we did terrible things to those people.
Like, thinking about it now, was that wrong?
But people are going to, how many people do you think will sign up for this?
A lot.
It'll
Yeah.
be,
I mean, it's money, right?
will it be over under 10 million?
Probably over 10 million just because of the pending economic collapse.
I was going to say, it is kind of like especially dark considering they know there's a recession coming.
That was the story in the Squid Game.
Yeah. Maybe that's why they took so long to greenlight it. They're like, no, we got to wait for the economy to dip a little bit longer before we start casting.
The producers kept calling Netflix, and Netflix was like, "Oh no, we have an economic collapse scheduled for second half 22. Let's wait for that."
I think it'll really go better with that. Ugh, dark. All right, that's it for our program this week.
Woo! Thanks for hanging out.
Yeah, follow us on the forum, internet, Twitter, or don't. It's fine. We'll be here either way.
Woo!
Bye.
Can't stop us.